Today on Rebel Then King, we are continuing Pathfinder Academy. Today, we're talking about casters. Welcome, adventurers. Spellcasters, the counterpart to the martial characters that we covered in the last video. This is a primer for you if you are new to the system and you want to play a magical user, a spellcaster. If you are an experienced player, go ahead and drop one of your spellcasting tips for the newbies in the comments below. So what is a caster? It is a class which uses a key ability other than dex or strength and has access to spells. A lot of spells. Cantrips, focus spells, and spell slot spells or rank spells. Kind of use those terms interchangeably. They typically have limited weapon access, typically have limited hit points and armor training. Examples of this would include the Animist, the Bard, the Druid, the Oracle, or the Wizard. Another term that I'm going to go ahead and lump into this video is Gish. What does this mean? It is a combination of martial and magic. It's a spectrum, it is not a hard definition, and there aren't Gish classes per se. There are Gishy martials and Gishy casters. It can be part of the class itself or a combination of your class plus some ancestry feats or a class and an archetype or something like that. Some examples, we talked about this a bit in the last video about martials. A martial Gish would be a champion who mostly uses weapons but does have access to a focus spell. And then the Magus is still barely martial first, but does quite a lot of magic. In this video, I'm thinking more along the lines of things like the Bard, who is a magic user, but actually has access to armor training, light armor training, and all martial weapons. The Druid, who is a spellcaster, who has shield block and medium armor training. The War Priest Cleric, who has armor training, shield block, and some weapon bonuses as they go along, and the Battle Oracle and others. Again, it is a spectrum, but these are just some examples. Now, in some of those previous slides, we saw a few terms that might be new to you. So I want to talk about the types of spells, starting with cantrips. These are your lowest power spells. They do automatically heighten, so you pick them and you don't have to worry about which version you're casting. They're just always going to be the best version of them. There is no resource limitation on these. You can cast them all day long, though some cantrips do have an immunity period. You cannot use the same target. You use it on the same target more than one time in X amount of minutes or hours, etc. These are your bread and butter. You should be using these all of the time. Then you have focus spells. These are medium power spells. They also automatically heighten, and they are almost always unique to your specific class and subclass option. It is your defining feature. They can be cast when you have a focus point in your focus pool. What does that mean? Well, most casters start with one focus point, a focus pool of 1 point, and you've got that point. You use a focus spell, you lose the focus point, and you can refocus in 10 minutes to regain a focus point. You can gain more focus points, total up to 3, with additional focus spells or other class feats and features. So these I like to think of as your once per combat encounter spell, because you use it, you lose the focus point. After combat, the team is recovering. You can refocus for 10 minutes and get that focus point back and use that spell in the next encounter. Then you have your spell slot spells or rank spells. These are your highest powered spells. They do not automatically heighten. You have a mixture of ranks available in a day. So as you level up, you might still have a few rank 1 spells, the least powerful, but then you might have some rank 5 spells, the most powerful for your character at that time. You are limited to like X amount per day according to your class's table. It does differ from class to class. It's typically 2 spells at level 1. It's 3 for some classes, and as you level up, you do mix your ranks of spells, as I mentioned. So, for example, at level 3, it is pretty common to see 3 rank 1 spells and 2 rank 2 spells. Another way to sort of classify spells is how they mechanically work. Starting with attack spells. You make an attack roll to see if you hit the target or not, just like if you were a melee attacking with a weapon, though it is not a strike. So if you see something in the rules that says it affects a strike, it does not affect a spell attack roll. It does follow, though, the same principles as weapon strikes, including multiple attack penalties. So if you roll a spell attack and then a weapon attack, that weapon is less accurate due to the spell attack that you made. Then there are save-based spells. The spell, it just works, okay? But the targets must make a save to see if they are effective. The basics saves, the basic fortitude, reflex, will save, work like this. If a creature critically succeeds on their save, no damage. Success, half damage. Failure, full damage. Critical failure, double damage. Another way to think about spells is the number of targets that they hit. Casters excel at hitting groups of enemies. Some attack spells actually allow attacks at multiple targets with no map, so you get to go like 1, 2, no multiple attack penalty. Area of effect, or AoE spells, can hit targets, any target in a large area. There are multiple types of areas. You've got cones, you've got bursts, you've got lines, and every creature in that area is going to have to make a save, even allies, though. So keep that in mind. You want to position those AoE spells so you're not taking out your allies, too. Sometimes one of them gets caught in the crossfire, and that's fine. Some cantrips can target a small AoE, just like 2 squares or something, so you can do this AoE damage all day long, or even multiple enemies. So not multiple attacks and not AoE, but hit multiple enemies nonetheless, and force them to make a save. So that can be a super effective way to play a caster as well. The dream is to sort of soften up the entire enemy squad, hit them with a big burst. They all take some damage, they're all looking bad, and then you let your marshals go in and finish the job. Now that we know a little more about what spells are and how they work, let's talk about what casters can do with those spells. What do they do with their magic? Well, damage. We talked about area of effect. But they can also target weaknesses and bypass resistances. As a spellcaster, you have access to far more damage types than marshals do. You can do elemental damage, fire and cold and acid. You can do mental damage. You can do force damage or spirit damage or void damage. All the kinds of physical damage. Bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. So let's say you are fighting something that maybe is resistant to bludgeoning and piercing damage. Well, you can switch to a slashing cantrip. That is not an option that your hammer-wielding barbarian has. Maybe you're fighting something that is resistant to all forms of physical damage. Your melee characters are basically stuck, but you can say, that's right, I'm just going to do fire damage instead. You can also do a ton of support in the buffing capacity. Some classes, like the Bard and Witch, have a ton of dedicated buffing spells. Most spell lists grant spells to improve your team's attacks and defenses as well. You can support through debuffing. Many classes have dedicated debuff spells as well, the Witch is another good example there. Many spells, including cantrips, do damage and debuff on a critical hit or a critically failed save. And there are just some straight up debuffing rank spells as well. Healing. Casters are the default, not the only, but the default in combat healers with the heal spell. But there's also the soothe spell for those that don't have access to heal through the spell lists, as well as some like temporary hit point cantrips. So they are great for healing in combat. And then in exploration, you have spells that can do social things. You can charm or you can confuse people. Movement things. You can fly. You can build a magical bridge. You can make the party invisible. And then discovery things. You can scout with a magical eye. You can magically enhance knowledge checks. So a lot of different things can be done with magic that can't be done in any other way in the game. And the thing is, as a spellcaster, even without magic, you can offer a lot of help to the party. As a charisma-based spellcaster, like a sorcerer, you can be the party face. What about those intelligence-based casters? Crafting, occultism, tons of languages. As an intelligence-based character, you might know more languages than the rest of the party combined. And then, of course, all those skills that you're going to be able to unlock through your intelligence. Wisdom-based casters, medicine, nature, survival, religion, and then non-magical healing as well. So you can use your heal spells in combat and then use your hands and just no magic, but your high wisdom to heal people outside of combat. And then you will also have a high perception for scouting and just figuring things out. So even without magic, due to having these charisma, intelligence, and wisdom key ability scores, you offer a lot to the party. So I've said a lot of really nice things about casters, but now let's do a little bit of pros and cons. Pros. You are rewarded for investing more time into learning the system. There's a lot to learn with a caster, but man, is it rewarding. The right spell at the right time can absolutely break encounters and solve huge problems. You contribute in all phases of play. You're not just a character who says, I know what I do in combat and then I've got nothing. You are just always active as a caster. There is a great variety of play style options. You can do pure damage, pure support, anything in between. And this is my opinion, but typically the class as described and just sort of provided through its mechanics is a little bit more flavorful than a lot of your martial characters, though not saying you can't make a very complex, very fun martial build. I'm just saying that the casters tend to give you a little bit more just by the book to work with. The cons, they are more complex on average than martials. They just are. They typically do not put up big damage numbers compared to martial classes either. They just don't. And running out of resources can make you feel powerless. If you don't have any rank spells and you don't have your focus spell and you are just relying on your cantrips, well, first of all, I say that's actually not that bad of a thing, but it does kind of eat at you when you have your big rank spells and you're going through the adventuring day and you see your spell count starting to dwindle. That is something that martial classes don't typically deal with because, well, they just pull out their sword and then in the next encounter, they pull out their sword, and the third encounter, they pull out their sword. And, yes, of course, there is resource management for martials as well. It's just not as stringent as it is for casters. So let's talk about how these spellcasters fit into your party. I do recommend a party of at least 50% martials. In this game, you need to hit hard and fast. Martials are better at that. 3 martials, 1 caster. Fine. 2 martials, 2 casters. Also fine. 3 martials, 2 casters. Great. 1 martial, 4 casters. I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm just saying I'd be a little bit scared with that party. Although now that I think of it, you could have a ton of healing and a ton of buffing and debuffing. It would be fine, probably. But I would put my money on the slightly more martial heavy party. Caster variety within a party. It is recommended to have casters with different key abilities and spell traditions. So 1 intelligence-based arcane witch, 1 charisma-based occult bard, for example. You do have to make sure to mind overlapping spell selection even across traditions, because a lot of spells show up and are available to multiple classes, and you could do that example I said there and end up with almost the same spell list. And, well, again, that might be okay, but you'd probably want some more variety there. And I would say, just make sure you have healing. You don't have to have a caster with multiple heal spells. You don't even have to have a caster be your primary healer. I'm playing with the party. Our Chirurgeon is actually our primary in-combat healer right now. So, that is how we're getting through. But the thing is, you probably would want to make sure that you have alternate in-combat healing abilities, and there aren't that many. There just aren't. I mean, yes, there's battle medicine. Yes, there's the forensic medicine investigator. Yes, there is the Chirurgeon alchemist that I just mentioned. Yes, there's the Chalice Thaumaturge. Yes, there's Lay on Hands, although that is magic, and that's Gish for a champion. So it is very typically a role that the casters are asked to pick up. And that is why I think if you do have two casters, it kind of makes sense to have one be the healing caster and one be the supporting, buffing, or damage caster. And to recap this video on spellcasters, the types of spells: cantrips, use them all day. Focus spells, use them once per combat. Spell slot or rank spells, use them while you have the spell slots. Those are your most powerful. And make sure to use them in a day. Some people just wait until the end of the day because they don't want to run out, which is understandable, but then they don't use them at all. So make sure you use them. Caster roles. Damage, weaknesses. Target those weaknesses. Get around resistances. And do area of effect. Hit multiple targets. Support with buffing and debuffing. Healing, you're going to be asked to do it as a spellcaster. You probably are. And then you can contribute in exploration with and without your magic. Casters in the party. Maybe for the more slightly experienced players, though I would not say if you're a beginner, don't play caster. Absolutely not. You can pick up, there are slightly easier casters. Sorcerer is a good starter. Bard is a good starter as well. And slightly harder ones, Wizard, Witch tend to be a little bit harder, but it's not like overwhelmingly difficult or anything. And I do say, even though I'm saying marshals tend to outnumber and should outnumber casters, a caster is vital to include in every party. Join us next time on Pathfinder Academy. And what should we cover next time? Let's leave a comment for that, because I feel like I've done most of the high level stuff, the very broad, very basic things. But if there is anything else that beginners would like to know, certainly let me know in the comments. And in the meantime, start shopping at paizo.com. Again, this is not sponsored material at all. It's just they make the games that I love talking about. So that's what it is. Catch you next time, adventurers.